Okay, so this is where we ended yesterday. This is the Berlin airlift. You might remember that Truman's popularity goes up and down, and this is actually one of the upswings. This describes one of the upswings because Stalin backs down. He doesn't, Stalin doesn't win. Let's go West Berlin, and West Berlin is this island of democracy and a sea of communism. Now, what really kills Truman's presidency? Is it not working?
Oh, I think it's not on.
No, we have the batteries so we'll try our best. What really kills Truman's presidency is the Korean War. So let me just try to give you the gist, right, as fast as I can. I'm not going to go into depth. I don't know the depth of the Korean War, but it's true that the Korean War is a forgotten war. It's a war that very few people remember. Relatively few people fought in compared to Vietnam and World War II. And so maybe some of your grandparents might have fought. Anybody know if their grandparents fought in Korea? Did they ever tell you stories about it? Not really. So I know very few personally. I've been more Vietnam veterans. So, but here's the story behind it anyway. This is only 5 years after World War II ends. North Korea invades South Korea in 1950. They invade South Korea because Korea was divided between the North and the South. Just like Germany was divided between the East and the West, the United States had occupied the South, Russia had occupied the North became communist, the South became democratic, and the North wanted to invade the South to take it over, to unify the Korean peninsula. And they almost won, as you can see here. They pushed the South Koreans back to the very tip of the peninsula in a place called Busan. I'll show you a map in just a second, okay? And so then the UN, the United Nations, decided to do what the United Nations is supposed to do, and that's to keep the peace. And so the UN, nobody objecting, went to the United States and basically asked us to lead the war. It was a UN coalition, but it was basically led by the US. And this is the first big police action by the United Nations. Truman chose Pacific Theater General, Admiral, whatever you want to call him, Douglas MacArthur, to lead the troops into Korea. And when he landed at Incheon, he began a slow, actually not a slow, a very fast and steady pushback, almost defeating the North Koreans entirely. Now, the word amphibious is here. You know what an amphibian is, right? It's like a frog. It goes from water to land and back, and that's what was happening here. We went from water to land, and we landed at Incheon. And MacArthur takes almost the entirety of North Korea. He almost wins the war. And of course, if you look on the chart, that's a little blip upwards in Truman's popularity. So here's what it looked like. This is the original line. The North communists here, the South Democratic here, and then the North invades, and the North almost defeats totally the South Koreans, right? Here's this little defensive zone right here, that's the only city that's left. They've taken the capital of Seoul, but when MacArthur lands at Incheon, they start pushing back, and you can see here, the North Korean army had this very little strip of land. Here's the problem. What country is on this side of the Yalu River? China. The year before, what had China suddenly become? Communist. North Koreans are communists. The Chinese said, don't get too close to the Yalu River. And MacArthur got too close to the Yalu River. And so the Chinese got involved. And so we were basically fighting the North Koreans and the Chinese at the same time. And basically, it gets back to almost the original dividing line of the 39th Peninsula, or 39th parallel, right there. And that's pretty much what the border is today. Today, all along this border is something called a demilitarized zone, and it's basically like a mile long, maybe not a mile long, strip of land all across the peninsula that's loaded with barbed wire, dynamite. There's like one little place in that whole strip where the two sides can meet together that's not, laced with explosives. It's, yeah, oh yeah, I mean, you can go in there, but you're not going out, kind of thing, right?
This war also had, they all signed the ceasefire.
As long as
Very
it's not
good
very
point.
demilitarized.
It's a militarized demilitarism. That's a very good way to put it. So, MacArthur gets too close to China. So the Chinese got involved. I would say that neither the United States nor China are really putting their full might into this thing. They're just sending troops to find it out. It's like a meat grinder right now. If you'd have put all of our troops into it, they put all their troops into it, then it would have been World War III. There's no question. Thing is, at this point, who also has nuclear weapons? The Russians. And the Russians are also communists. So would they join with the Chinese? And almost certainly they would have. And that's what MacArthur wants to do. He wants to drop nuclear weapons on Red Communist China. Because in MacArthur's mind, you don't commit to a war without being willing to go to the end and finish it off. And there's so many Chinese people that they could keep sending wave after wave of troops that it would never almost never end. And so he's like, let's just hit the major cities with nuclear bombs. And Truman says, no, I'm not going to do that again. I've already done it once. I'm not going to be responsible for more deaths on that scale. And so MacArthur starts going to the press and starts telling the media, hey, we got to nuke them, right? He goes to Congress and we got to nuke them. And so Truman tells him, hey, you've got to shut up. Because who's the commander in chief? The president, right? The generals are always supposed to, even if they think the president is wrong, they're always supposed to follow the president's orders. That's the chain of command. Well, MacArthur went to the press even more, and so he was fired for insubordination. Yeah. Right. I mean, not having a trade partner like China is a big deal. And one of the reasons why there's a middle class in China today is because they trade with us. So I'm not saying, well, anyway, I don't want to get too involved in that, but yeah, there are benefits to it. Now, I want to stop real quick, and I want to give you a life lesson here, okay? Are there going to be times, you got your job right now? Where do you work? Oh, okay. I mean, this might be good for you. Maybe you where you get anywhere else? You're going to get a job at McDonald's. You're going to get a job at Rural King. You're going to get a job at Walmart. Hopefully, you get even better higher paying jobs, right? Okay, but someday you're going to have a boss. This is going to happen, right? I mean, there's no way this is not going to happen. You're going to disagree with what your boss says and what your boss does. It's going to happen, right? And you might even think that you're better than your boss, that you're smarter than your boss, and you actually might be smarter than your boss, and you might be right. But if you go onto social media and complain about your boss, what's going to happen? They're going to find out. Somebody will screenshot it, somebody will send it to your boss. And it will happen, I promise. Right? Because that's the way people are. And then when your boss sees that, what's your boss going to do? Either rip your butt and you have to stand there and take it, or you can argue back, right? And what's going to happen? Now, I'm not saying Then MacArthur was right. Dude was probably a would-be dictator. Okay, so I don't want to give him too much credit here. I think Truman was right. But even if you're the one who's right and you go about it the wrong way, what's going to happen? Bad things will happen to you. So I'm just saying there's a pecking order in life, and if you want to get things changed, then you got to go through the right channels. You can't just go above people's heads and slander your boss on social media where everybody can see it. There's got to be a better, more proper, more mature way to handle it. I don't think MacArthur handled this in a mature way, and he got what he deserved, in my opinion. Now, MacArthur, to try to vindicate himself, because everybody wants to prove that they're right in disagreements. Am I right about that? He goes to Congress. The Republicans in Congress invite him in, and he makes this famous speech where he basically says, "I was right the whole time, Truman was wrong the whole time." He doesn't say it like that. It's in so many words, right? But at the end of his speech, he says, "Old soldiers never die; they just fade away." And he says, "That's what I'm doing. I'm fading away." Which I guess is fortunate because in the past, in like Roman history, generals have tried to seize power from Caesars and stuff like that. And that's what he did. He faded away from history. And like, here. I mean, did you know, how many of you knew about MacArthur before we started talking about it? Just a couple of you, right? I mean, it's not like he's a household name like Elvis Presley, who was about as well known at the time himself, right? The war ended, quote unquote, ended, not under Truman. It just ground on and ground on and ground on. It seemed like there was no end in sight afterwards. And President Eisenhower was running for president in 1952, and he promised America, "I'll get us out of this war." And as soon as he was elected, like within 3 months, he's got a ceasefire signed. We're out of the war. And so basically, technically, it's still going on. Technically, it's just this permanent ceasefire. Okay, now, and that's Douglas MacArthur right there. So hopefully you can see then why the way the war ended, Truman's popularity goes way down. Okay. Okay. Now, make sure you get the rest of this from somebody. Okay. Now, two things. And I want to do two more things because this stuff is so important. I have a video for you to watch. It's like 8 minutes. Okay. Can you make a deal? Can you make the deal that if you watch and you're not like on your phone and you're not like, you know, sleeping, and you're just watching, then I won't make you fill out a worksheet. Is that okay? Is that a deal? All right. And then after that, I've got a little review. And this video is over Truman.
I got that 34 grade. But the day I wasn't here, it came in late on class meeting day.
Can you tell me which one it was?
It was a quiz day.